Hey guys, welcome to another episode of LFA's Chop Shop. Today's the day that I start the video that this thing runs and drives. So it already runs, that's nice and handy, but it's got a few things left to do before I can actually drive it out of this shed, put it somewhere else so I can ignore it for a bit longer. So this thing's been going on for way too long. Let's get into it. Before I get started on this thing, I have a lot of mess to clean up. So there's been a lot of stuff going on in the last couple of weeks that I haven't filmed, nothing too exciting. But I have tools and just stuff everywhere. So things have just been getting thrown in the door, been grabbing the next thing and going on to the next job. So I'll clean all of this up. There is a half Honda behind me. There's just stuff everywhere. I'll get all this cleaned up and I'll catch you up. 2 hours later, and this is where I'm up to. So I've got to get this guy out the way. There's a few things in there that need to get out of the way, but they can stay there for now. I can get access to this Toyoace and I can get underneath it and have a look and see what we're working with. I'm going to start with the accelerator cable because I believe that's going to be the hardest job. So let's dive in and try and work that out. Whilst I haven't been working on this thing, I've been throwing bits and pieces as I get them through the window. And I've got a couple of drawings here of my plan for the accelerator cable and a shifter which I've got from Dale. So this is my backup if I can't get this guy to work with the shifter cable. But at the moment I've got this accelerator cable and it works great. So what I would like to do is make an adapter for this to go backwards, and then when you push the pedal, which I'm gonna have to remake, instead of going up and down, I'd like to make it go forwards and backwards. I'll run this probably forwards and across or something like that, and then I can pull it backwards like you would in a Commodore, but obviously underneath the floor and sneaky and awkward. So I'm going to clean this out, I'll jack this thing up, chuck it on jack stands, then I can get access into the underfloor area, and we'll try and get this damn accelerator cable under control. But first, this is the plan. So pedal, pivot on the floor, and then there's a small like pass through the floor, and then there's a piece of rod which goes to another linkage, I guess, which has the correct throw. I think the throttle body needs to move 10 centimeters and the pedal needs to move 5.5 or something like that. I've worked it out, but I need to double check all my measurements and calculations, and then the throttle body and the cable will attach to that. So as you put your foot down on the pedal, it'll push this rod section back, pushing this big rod backwards, levering that guy and pulling the cable. So a little awkward, maybe that's better, I'm not sure. But that's the plan. This is a 2 a.m. Stuck at work sketch, so let's get in. I have tripped, fallen and created a solution. So I didn't really want to film this because I wasn't sure it was going to work. I'm still not sure, but I'm quite deep into the process, so I should probably show you before it does work or doesn't work and I've wasted all day. So this piece is going to bolt to the bottom of the floor, and then we've got those two dangly guys. The front one is a sort of placeholder that's probably going to get replaced at a later date, and then I've made a rod to connect it to, which is just a piece of rod welded between two flat bar to get it out of the way and also keep it kind of slim. And then somewhere here in this mess of production is this guy, which is just a bracket for the cable. So this guy's going to mount that way onto this, and then the cable will go that way off onto the motor, which can, it's quite a long one which I've found, it's off a Camry or something, and that can go off to the motor, plenty of access and length. And then the inside of that, which will be the like actual throttle cable part, goes this way and will connect to this guy, and I can change the height to change the length of throw. I don't know how to explain this. I found another piece of diagram. So I worked out that the throttle body needs 4.5 centimeters of throw. The old pedal had 8 centimeters. So all I need to do down here is make sure this can move 4.5 centimeters wherever I place this guy, and then I'll fabric gobble something over here. So I think I'm going to use this pedal, which I found, which I think is a K31 or something like that, and it's going to go that way through the floor, which I think is exactly upside down and backwards. So where my hand is where your foot will be. As you push forwards, the bottom half will go backwards, and then that will push
this guy or be changed with that guy. I haven't got that far yet. I probably sound pretty unsure and pretty confused because, well, I am. So I'll catch you up when I've got a bit further. So on the next step, this is the floor of the Toyoace. This is the front of the Toyoace. And then this is obviously the motor. So what I need to do is obviously wrap this cable back towards the motor. But now what I've got is a full pivoty guy, which is all loose and horrible. I need to make some bushes on the lathe. But I have full movement on this cable, which is obviously not working great at the moment because of the lack of tension on the other end. And now I need to go from this one up to the pedal somehow. And then I'll clean it all up and make it pretty and all that stuff. So this is tricky, if you hadn't noticed. This bracket might get remade. It seems kind of sturdy, but we'll see. I'm just sort of making it up as I go, and it's hard to film when I don't know what I'm going to do next. Speaking of, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I'll cut to that now. And we have some kind of solution. So the pedal is up here. The pedal pivot is still in the same spot. I actually somehow fluked a stock Toyota pedal in there with a bit of bending. So then the bottom of the pedal comes down to this rod, pushes everything this way, and then attaches to this main lever, which pushes this guy, which goes across and pushes this secondary lever, which also gives us room for the throttle cable. So I probably could have just put the throttle cable on this lever here, lever, but then it would be in the way of this guy, and then all this bracket would be difficult. This seems to be the simple solution. I say that a bit hesitantly because I don't even know if it works really. It's all very loose currently. I need to remake a bunch of this with the lathe and some bearings and some actual pins and stuff, bushes, and then it should work. So that all pivots correctly. It's also not bolted to the floor properly. So if that's bolted on properly, let's assume that's properly. And then that's obviously no accelerator. Pull it to full throttle. The actual throttle body is bottoming out. There's nothing else bottoming out, which is pretty amazing. And then you let off and the throttle body pulls it all closed. So I was going to put another spring on here, but the throttle body seems to be doing its job. So I might leave it. I don't know. I'll have a look at that later. But that's how it works down here. On to the next problem. This little accelerator cable bracket bolts to the side of the intake, and I need to move it forwards about 20 mil. So I'm only using the inside one, which is probably maybe not the right one to use. It doesn't really matter to me. So I'm going to shorten this guy up, and then I want to cut off that front or right hand side bolt hole and trim all of this, and then put the same thing onto the back so that this whole bracket just slides forward a little tiny bit. So a bit tricky. I'll show you in just a second what the end result was. So the throttle body end, I've cut the bracket up and moved it forwards pretty much a hole. That is the original back hole, and I've just slid the bracket forwards. It's rubbing on this rubber hose, so I need to fix that, but other than that it's pretty happy. As for the throttle cable, it's currently maxed out that way, so we can make it tighter, can't make it much looser. This is not under any tension, which is good. So that gets full throttle, which is nice. So coming over to the pedal, it is a lot higher than it was, but if I push on that, I've got full movement. And if I go over to the throttle body, I'm pushing on the pedal with one hand, and the throttle body, you can sort of see rotating there. So it's all very loose, so there's a lot of slop and slack, but as you can see, that's working quite well. And then if I get my foot in here, boot, so that's kind of where I had it before, was the heel on that plate there. I can rest my foot against the side, and it's nice and on that accelerator. And then if I want to go to the brake, I don't even have to move the heel, I can just go straight to the brake and shouldn't touch the accelerator. I'll have to work that out, and I also want to remake the actual pedal part, not the lever, just the top guy, because I have a nice rubber that I would like to use. So I'm assuming that'll work. I need to make a better one and get rid of all that slop, and then we can see for real if this actually works. Day 2 on this quest to get this thing running. So what I want to do is ignore the accelerator cable for a minute, because my lathe is out of action until I get the motor back. I just got a message to say that it's finished, but I won't get till Friday. Shifter time. Let's jump into that. So this is a, I believe, HQ Trimatic shifter. So I had a HQ
Th400 shifter, but they're like above the tunnel normally, and it didn't really work in my instance. Whereas this one has the shifter linkage on the bottom, so it would actually be under the floor. And if you have a Th400, that hits the floor, or hits the trans through the floor. So this is actually meant for my application, size-wise and shape-wise. I just need to work out if I can make the cable actually attached to this and have the correct amount of throw, because if you don't have the right amount of throw, you end up halfway between gears and you'll turn your magic box into an exploded disappointment box. So I don't know where to start, but I will right now. Many moons ago I bought this B&M cable, so this is a 12 or 14 foot one, I think. So it's massively long because the trans is about here. The shifter cable is going to have to go from the far side all the way around the back of the trans, all the way forwards, and then in front, like past the shifter, do a loop again, and then up into the shifter, or on the other side. So it needs to be long, and I can always hide or, you know, remount this cable so it's longer. I can't make it fit and reach if this is too short. So I need to work out what the plan is. So I'll do that and I'll get back to you in just a minute. So for those of you not familiar with a B&M shifter, the cable runs forwards in the car and then normally just sort of snakes through the trans tunnel down to the transmission, or you can normally loop them around and come back to the trans. So this is currently in the lowest gear, so you would have first, push it forwards for second, push it forwards for third, push it forwards for fourth. This is currently set up for a 4-speed. Then you'd have neutral, reverse, park, and then most of these shifters have 2 park positions. So this one's currently set up for a 4-speed, and it's also had the reverse lockout removed, which in my case is great because I don't want that. I just want to be able to slap it back a whole bunch of times into gear, first, second, third. I'll lock out first, so it'll only be a 3-speed. Neutral if you need it, reverse, park, park. So how do I make this work? So this throw here on the end of the shifter cable is what tells the transmission to go into which gear. So this should be reasonably well set up already. I've got the brackets on the transmission already. So what I need to do is measure how far there is between all of the gears, and then make that shifter in the car recreate that shifter position length change. So it's going to be a little tricky, a little more calculations like yesterday, but it should work out, and fingers crossed I don't have to use this B&M one. They are a grey shifter, but I don't want this style or look or ratcheting in this car because it doesn't need it. And then I can give this back to Dale or buy it off of him. We'll see. So I've done some really professional eyeballing, tongue wagging, and I've got some measurements here. So the B&M throw for the cable works out to an average of about 9mm per gear. The HQ one in the truck works out to about 10mm per gear, so that's pretty close, which is nice. And the Th400 under the car, or under the truck, is 9mm, which matches the B&M. So I would have expected that. So that means that I need to make the shifter that's in the truck, instead of being 10mm throw, I need it to be 9mm throw, which should actually be a lot easier than it sounds. So I just need to make the hole position higher and mount it. But there's one other problem, and that is similar to what I had with the accelerator, and that's going the wrong way. So currently that would be in first gear, and then if you went the other end of the spectrum, that would be in park. So I can either mount the shifter backwards, which wouldn't really be an issue, it's just a little bit of fab work, and then you'd have park at the bottom, which would be kind of dumb, I guess. Or I can run the cable in from the back, which I could probably do, but the seat sits right hard up against this. So what I'm going to have to do is, again, similar to yesterday, run some kind of linkage to backwards forwards this guy up here, and reverse the direction, and then the cable will go forwards and through the floor, which is still not ideal, but I'm working with what I got. So I am not sure, but I'm going to work it out. So I've done some thinking about the old shifter and decided to go with the B&M. So instead of messing around making that change directions and pedal ratio, why not just put this on, then it's the correct direction and the correct throw,
and it bolts in. So it won't actually bolt in, but here is the bracket I made for the HQ shifter. So if I stand it up there, something like that. Of course this was working way better off camera. And then I got this guy drawn up. So the shifter goes on the right hand side there. 3 drink holders, so that one fits my drink bottle and the big Maximus bottles. And the other 2 fit Mountain Dew's bottle, which I think is slightly different to Coke, but I'm not 100% sure. And also ginger beer bottles, which is excellent. So now what I want to do is chuck that on there. Make a plate to suit this guy. I'll probably have to fold the edges down to make this a bit stronger. I'm going to cut these guys out with the first step of the dimple die. I may dimple die them as well. Give it a nice little flare. We'll see how we go. I'll just see how it all sort of works out. So I'm going to transfer this onto steel and I'll cut some holes out and show you some of the process. Quick measure, bit of drawing, a couple of center punches and a bunch of holes. So these 4 here are for the shifter to bolt down to, they're at size. These 4 on the corners are so that when I fold it, it doesn't get all bound up with itself. So hopefully that's good enough and they're the size. And then these 3 need to get cut out with the dimple die cutter part, and then I can use those for the cup holders. So I'll get to that now. I just wanted to update you guys where I'm at with this, and then obviously I'm going to fold these edges down to sit nicely on top of the section I've already made. So let's see how this goes. So it really is that easy. So these guys I had to do in 2 steps because I only got, well, it's way easier to drill a hole this size and then use the cutters to make a hole for the bigger size. So 2 steps, done, nice blunt finish, it's not sharp or anything. The bottom side's got a little edge on it, but the top is primo. So now the 3-inch pipe needs just a little bit of clearance to go in there, which is fine. And then the 4-inch, whatever it is, just under 4-inch, which I've put somewhere, needs a tiny little bit of clearance as well, but fits really nice. And with the front one, I am going to probably square this edge up so it doesn't actually have to fit all that well. So I'll square this guy up, and then I'll also cut off that little leg and around there, so it'll fit. No worries. Now to have a session with the angle grinder, but first I will countersink all of these so they're nice and deburred. I'll just skip forward to when I'm folding this. Okay, so I've got this piece all cleaned up. So this is the side I was working on, and now I need to fold it, so you need to flip it over, which I've forgotten a couple of times, and it makes a lot of work for yourself. So I've scribed the lines on there. You can't really see them on camera, but I can see them in person, so that's fine. I'm going to chuck you guys on time lapse, and hopefully this looks good and I don't mess it up, because this has taken quite a while. So that folded quite well. The only problem is that these 2 edges here did raise up a little bit. Not the biggest problem by any means, but it's just something to note. The corner reliefs that I drilled and bent worked perfectly, so that's excellent. So now I'll just see if this fits and what else I need to trim for this bigger cup holder. So I think I'm gonna have to trim that guy off. I just haven't tried yet. And then I'll cut this guy off in the middle there and just make some nice clearance, and then I can get some pipe and weld it together. But first, does it fit on here? Well, it should, because I made it oversized, so plenty of clearance. Let's fiddle with this and I'll catch you up after lunch. So the plan has come along nicely. So we've got the big drink holder, the 2 little guys, and the shifter on there. So this is now attached. I had to clearance a little bit in here for this little tin cover. So I can get to the front and get that cable in there. That'll all bolt up as per the B&M factory. And then these guys just need a bit of cleaning up. These 2 already have stops on the bottom from the previous setup. And this guy, I've got a little bar on a weld in just down here, just to stop the big stuff falling through. And then if you get dirt and stuff in there, it won't stay in the cup holder, because that's a great way to have dirt everywhere. And it does clear here, so this should all bolt back in as per factory. The shift doesn't come any further back than this guy, which is where the original one was. So the seat should still fit. And then the plan is to probably make the shifter actual knob thing for this a fair bit taller, because the other shifter was a fair bit taller and I'm thinking I'm going to have trouble. Plus, I like the look of a longer shifter, so that's pretty much it for now. And then I know that both ends are B&M ready and the cable's B&M, so it's literally just routing the cable. So that should be reasonably easy. And then we just got the cooling system to mount, and I can actually try and drive this thing. It's a little scary. I mean, I'll obviously have to fix up the accelerator pedal and clean this up, and there's a fair bit more work, but a lot of that will be off camera, I reckon. So I've got a little bit more time to throw at this Toyoace. So I've got the shifter and stuff back in, which I'll show in a second. I've got the shifter cable drilled through the floor and coming through there. Got a bit of a list going for the door, on the door I should say. I've got the shifter in place, just nice and solid. Cup holders, I need to put a bar on the bottom of this cup holder because I forgot. And I thought I was going to paint it, but nothing else in this truck I've really painted, so I might leave it. So there we go. So that shifter cable is connected, runs forwards through the floor, needs a grommet or whatever, but that's pretty happy. And then at the back, it's all hooked up to the trans, which I can't be bothered climbing underneath to show you. I've filled it up with trans fluid. So now I just need to test it really. So what I'm going to do is jack the back up, get it off the ground, get in there and see if I can get the wheels to move and the brakes to work. And if that works, I can hook the steering back up and then finalize the accelerator pedal and that mess, and then we can actually try and drive it, which is a little scary. Very close, a little scary. So I'll get this thing in the air, let's get this thing running and see if it works. So I've got both microphones going because we've had some issues and I don't want to miss out on the audio for this clip. So, truck is in the air, I promise. We should be good to go. So let's start it up and see if it's in park to start with, and then we'll go from there. So I'm gonna get in the truck and you guys watch the wheel, tell me if it's working. I can't let go of this throttle, because if I do, it'll fall, it'll stall. Oh, there we go. Alright, so the wheels are not moving. Put my foot on the brake. And we'll go back a gear. Let the foot off the brake. We have reverse, that's pretty cool. Put my foot on the brake again. That should be neutral. Or forward, they're going forwards, but it should be neutral. And then we'll go third, second, that should be first. They're spinning very slowly. Knock it forward to gear, spinning a bit faster. Knock it forward to gear again, spinning a bit faster again. So that should be first, and if I give it a little blip, well, they work.
It's kind of running badly again. We'll deal with that later.
Alright, let's put it in third. Should be that one. Give it a rev. Well, that's pretty exciting. Alright, neutral works, which is great. Park works, which is nice. Reverse works, first, second, third work. The only thing left to do is to put it on the ground and try, but those brakes do not fill me with confidence. It should be parked now. So, yep, we're all good there. Tail shaft's not moving. Alright, cool. Success. Stressful is the way I would describe that. Exciting, but a bit stressful. So that works, that's awesome. Now I just need to make these brakes actually work because they didn't really. And then put the steering back in and make this accelerator work a little bit better, and we should be able to actually try and move this thing. Woohoo! I am excited and scared. So yesterday this thing ran and the rear wheels moved, which was awesome. So I just quickly tried to do some brake line stuff, which turned into a huge schmozzle. And Aiden's going to grab some parts for me and bring those around to this afternoon and help me bleed these brakes again. Just putting in that residual valve that I kept talking about. So then I moved on to the accelerator cable guy. Given that you guys saw me make this the first time, I figure you don't want to watch it again. So I've fixed up a bunch of stuff and bolted it to the floor, welded it properly. I need to do another one here, which I forgot about. Remade all of these arms, rounded a bunch of corners and set all of the distances. So what I need to do now is when the lathe is operational again, which will be tomorrow, I can make a bush for everywhere. So those two mainly and these guys. So yeah, 6 of them. So then they will be able to be tightened properly, not come on loose, but still have a way that these can move. Because if I do these up currently, then you can't move these. And then if you do move these come loose, and it's just a cycle. So that's currently no accelerator, which is what I want. And then if you go to full throttle, the cable actually bottoms out, which is good. So the throttle body itself is bottoming out. And it all kicks back nicely. So in the car, I'll show you how that looks and we'll move on to the next job. So I've got the shifter all assembled, the cable's all in, which is good. Everything's ready to go. I just need to make the gear knob, which again I need the lathe for. I need to weld on a piece for the string holder because I forgot about that one. So if you put anything in the front one, it just falls through to the floor. So that's a tomorrow job probably. And then we've got the brake pedal, which needs to be bled, and then I can finalize that. And then the accelerator, which has full movement like so. And if you come over to the throttle body, you have full movement. So that's awesome. Now I want to get rid of this guy. So what I want to do is mount this tank here or here adjacent, and then get rid of these 2 clamps and this piece of metal because it's annoying. And then I need to take this off and get a bung welded into it for the steam pipes. So there's a few little bits and pieces here that need to get done. And then I can put the floor in as well. But for today, I'll probably end up just putting a piece of wood or something here so I can sit on that and look like a 3-year-old trying to drive the car, because I'll be sitting on the floor. So I'll put the steering back in as well. That needs to happen. And just tinkering really. So Aiden will be here in probably 2 hours. So I'm just trying to tinker. We've got a bunch of stuff like that resi valve to go in. I need to mount the brake hard lines to the chassis. I need to mount the cables to the chassis, check the trans fluid, all that sort of stuff. And I did a bunch of jobs when the lathe is here. So I'm just going to keep working and clean up and all that sort of stuff and see how much I can get done. And we're going to be driving this thing very shortly. Probably an hour later, so I haven't done a whole lot. Got the dipstick in, just cleaned some stuff up, made sure everything was bolted down. Got the overflow bolted down, so I don't need all those clamps anymore. The accelerator is 100% working. I don't know if I showed that or not. Now the shifter has a slight problem. There's little gates up here that don't seem to be springing down, so unless you push on those and move the gear stick, it doesn't go backwards in gear, but it will go forwards through the gears. So once you get in first, I guess it's not a problem, but when you want to downshift, it's not going to work, so I need to fix that. Steering's all back together, so that actually does stuff, which is nice. Brake pedal, I think this is going to be a 2-foot driving kind of job, so I'll probably end up moving the brake pedal over a little bit, but for now, good enough. Everything I'm pretty happy with so far. So other than putting a seat in it, which may or may not happen, and bleeding that rear brake with the resi valve in place, pretty much ready for a test drive, I think. It's a little bit scary. I have got a list of other stuff that I'd like to clean up. Just stuff like the accelerator cable bushes, so this whole thing is going to get bushes, like brass bushes made up. Mount the accelerator cable and also mount the B&M cables to the actual body. Check the trans fluid, fix the cup holder, gear knob, hub rings for here, because that's a huge gap and needs to be rectified. Mount the brake lines to the car. They're obviously plumbed but not actually attached. Resi valve, a body loom, so lights and wipers basically. Weld the rest of that bracket that I forgot about, and then like a steam port bung and bleed the brakes and sort out the shifter. So we're really close. There's obviously a huge list to follow this, but once that's done, that is honestly the majority of it. There's just other stuff like the electric dash or the tablet that I want to use, and hooking up seat belts and stuff, which I haven't even thought about. And there's pretty much nowhere to hook up the seat belts, so I'll have to make something. But we're all, and then plate in all of this and put the engine cover back on and all the stuff you do once you actually want to try and drive it properly. So Aiden should be here very shortly and we'll fix this resi valve. It's the moment, we've bled the brakes. We're going to try and drive this out there, try and not run Aiden over. I'm going to film from the inside, he's going to film from the outside, and we'll see how we go. Oh, they feel okay after a couple of pumps.
It's alright, he thinks the brakes work, but I don't think so. I definitely don't think so.
Reverse.
More revs.
I'm trying not to drive backwards.
Just come here. Harley, Harley. Wait.
Reverse. Neutral. Third. Second. First. Alright, let's try and ease out of here. I feel very high in the air.
Keep it that. Whew. So I want to see skids.
Huh?
I want to see a line up in the driveway and turf the gravel.
No skids.
Typical
good.
LS.
Is that what you wanted?
Yeah, typical LS, one legger.
Yeah. Whew.
I'm gonna need you to clean all this shit up. How'd it drive, bud?
It's terrifying. How terrible. The brakes are very soft, which is not good. Need more work on the brakes.
Harley. Yeah, she goes alright.
This week on LFA's Job Shop. Success! Alright, so it drives. That's pretty damn exciting. So these brakes need some love. There's a bunch of other stuff on it that needs to be finished off. So in the next episode that I work on this thing, I will actually button it all up and we'll be able to drive it properly. But for now, I've spent like 4 days busting my bum on this, so pretty over it. But thank you very much for watching and we'll see you next week.